This is Abe Friedhanser from Words Buzz, and I'm very excited to be speaking with Khalid Abdallah about The Crown. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
Were you a watcher of this show before you came on to star on it?
No, I wasn't at all. It's a really funny kind of story. I'm one of those people who completely assumed that the crown was something other than it was. I was one of those people, actually, even in my relation with Diana and Dodie. I mean, actually, from the day they died, pretty much, I was someone who kind of averted their gaze and kind of felt like I don't know, like I needed to give them space somehow. And we have a lot of royal family news that is constantly kind of foisted upon us, and I was always someone who looked elsewhere. And so then when The Crown first started, I was like, really, we're doing another thing about royal family? Um, and then of course gradually the news kind of started to get to me. This was quite good, but I still hadn't seen it. And then I'm going on a long round robin trip here, but I'll take you with me
Yeah.
because the truth is that then there was this moment when I kind of realized that they're going on for a few seasons, and my parents lived near a bus stop, and there was this bus that went past my parents' house, and it had the crown on it, and I was like, "Oh, are they going to get to Dodie and Diana?" And I had the flash of the thought in my head, and I was like, no, I'd be completely the wrong person. Like, no, absolutely not. Um, and anyway, I don't want to. And then eventually the audition came to me, the call, and so I started first of all to go into trying to understand what I didn't know about Dodie and kind of begin to think, well, how are they going to approach it? And also, very importantly, I watched and I watched it and I was like, oh, wow, this is actually quite good. And uh, I began to understand the Crown's approach, not just to the royal family, but also to British history and the period that it follows, and the nature of its characterizations and the depth of how it looks at things intergenerationally. And obviously, I knew the performances were good, but also how good they were. Um, and that became the backdrop for my first meeting. And I entered the meeting uh, to meet Peter and Robert Stone, the casting director. And really, there's a burning question inside me as to, right, is Dodie going to be essentially presented how we've often had him, as a kind of cipher, as someone who we don't really know? In which case, why? You know, but also, uh, and fundamentally, I guess in that meeting, I understood the approach that Peter wanted to take. That not just Dodie, but the Fayed family was going to be given space and the same kind of approach and dignity as the other families in the Crown. Um, and and that Dodie, there was room for Dodie finally after 26 years to be known. Of course, at that point, I didn't know what I now know about him, and I hadn't been on the journey that I'd been on. But you could sense that, okay, here was something that had cultural depth, that was a challenge, that was special, uh, and worth giving yourself fully to. So that was a very long answer to what seemed like a simple question.
No,
But
no, that's fine. That's just the start because I think a lot of people do watch this show and sort of digest it as history, and it is some ways, but it's also not. There are a lot of private moments we see that we can't possibly know exactly what happened in those. So, do you feel like this is a biography of Dodie, or this is a somewhat fictionalized version of that which we do know?
no, of course, it's not a biography, of course, and it is it's a, I mean, it's a fictionalized imagining tethered in reality. You know, it's um, something I learned when I did film called United 93, which was my first film, and I've done a number of different projects in which I play characters, or or the film has been close to historical events, and even when you have a historical event, there are always many arguments about what that historical event was, looked like, what happened, and all of those kinds of things. And I've really come to believe that our role when we approach these kinds of things is not to answer questions for which nobody has answers, but to ask them as intensely as possible. And where you have something that tethers your reality, you absolutely are faithful to it. And then between those tetherings, you're asking the questions as intensely as you can. So, for example, I don't know, with Dodi and Diana, there is no way of knowing exactly what caused the crash, or there's no way of knowing exactly whether or not they were what would have happened in their future, for example. However, if you look at the CCTV footage of them in the hour and the minutes before they died, in the Ritz in the Ritz at the back before they got in the cars, you see a body language where Diana is holding Dodi's hand behind her back. They're nuzzling each other with their heads, and there is this incredible tenderness between them, which for me answers the question, well, there was a falling in love of some kind, because you don't have that kind of body language without a falling in love. A falling in love doesn't mean that you're going to be together for the rest of your lives, or even for another, few weeks, but it does mean that that you're in the throes of that. One of the things that I did was that I gathered together every single image that I could find and that was available on the internet, on Getty, and wherever else, of them during the period of that 6 weeks of their relationship. And everyone knows the famous photographs, but what I did is I put them all in chronological order. Once you put them in chronological order, a story begins to appear between one moment and the next, and I begin to be interested not by the famous images which are salacious, but rather by the tenderness of his hand on her face, or her hand in his, or her look to him, or his look. All of these things, they tether your sense of what has to be there. And then in the doing of this mix between Peter's scenes and being in environments that are almost exactly the same, if not the same, under similar circumstances, you discover what is shimmering around the story, between those people, and what you also have to hold sacred, I think, for audiences. Sometimes I kind of, consider this a bit of a pilgrimage. These two died under circumstances over which millions of people around the world have shed tears and continue to feel very emotionally involved. And so we as performers, as collaborators, as writers, all of us have a kind of duty to honor whatever it is inside people that is deeply affected by this. And that's what we tried to do. That's and me and Elizabeth, that's the thing. You hold that for your character, but you also hold that between your characters as well. And that happened very much so between me and Elizabeth, and also happened very much so between me and Celine. Those were my two main. It's an extraordinary thing to do.
How do you think people have responded to your performance and the storyline? Have you been aware of that at all?
Oh, it's been delightful. There's a number of different ways. the first for me, and I guess this comes specifically from Dodi, and I feel this, and I often feel the need to say it. One of the things that really hit me in the gut in a big way, is that Dodi, it really turns out in the history of cinema on this side of the world, is the first Arab character who you get to know and love, not fear. And so when he dies, you mourn. And, in the context of all the wars that have happened and involved the thousands of Arab deaths over my lifetime, it says a lot about our cultural imaginary that he's the first. But also, just as him as an individual over those 26 years, to not have been mourned, for there to be people who ask me still if he's alive, if they haven't seen the show, obviously. There is a particular kind of way I tend to be approached, which I don't know, in which some part of that is resonating. One of the places as well that I have been, it's really been very special is, of course, when I've been in Los Angeles over these past months, a lot of people in LA knew him, and it's just so remarkable the kind of way that they will, I don't know how to describe it. It's just the way that they will immediately first look at me. And it's like a particular, I don't want to call it a thank you, but it's a kind of, oh, you captured something of him and that means something because he was forgotten, And I feel like some part of that tends to resonate with people towards me. And it's been a great honor. It's been a great honor to carry that. The other thing is also from an Arab audience point of view, people who speak Arabic, we're used to our culture not being represented accurately or fairly or in ways that we see ourselves in. And, people have been watching it delighted that this is happening and on this scale. So to have those range of audiences watch this and be touched and feel like that we've held them as dearly to us as we truly feel. And then, and you're in the midst of this story that already touched so many people and is touching them again. It's like I say, it's a real honor.
Really great. Yeah. Well, here at Awards Buzz, we love awards. I'm always curious what people I speak to, what you're watching, if you've seen a show or a performance recently that you feel is particularly awards worthy.
Oh God, I am completely the wrong person to ask. So that I'm in a corner here of the National Theatre in London because I'm about to do a play. So I'm like stuck in rehearsals. I have two kids who are 6 and 7. By the time I do anything, it's like 10:30 at night, and I'm lucky if I have minutes to be awake. So I'm gonna refrain from answering that question just simply because, like I was in the earlier part of the awards season, and I'm just aware of how many extraordinary actors actors and performers and people to be part of, and I don't want to stick anyone's name out. I mean, they're all clearly amazing, and it's just a delight to be in their company.
That's very fair. Well, thank you so much, Khaled. It was a real pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you for taking the time.
Likewise, thank you very much.